Welcome to Cloud on Air, live webinars from Google Cloud. We are hosting webinars daily. You are watching Dev Community, a show where Google Cloud experts from the developer community share their perspectives about the cloud ecosystem and what's trending. My name is Felipe Hoffa, and today we will be talking about moving your data into the cloud into BigQuery. Joining me today is Michael Manoochehri, CTO of Switchboard. You can ask questions anytime on the platform, and we have Googlers on standby to answer them. Let's get started. So, hello, Michael Manoochehri. We're going to talk about how companies handle tons of data from multiple sources, and Switchboard is a company that helps them move all of these multiple sources into any data warehouse they want to. And many of them, and increasingly more of them, are choosing BigQuery. So everyone, this is Michael Manoochehri, CTO of Switchboard, and the last time we made a video together was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. It's fantastic to see you, by the way. So we worked together on the BigQuery project 5 years ago, and we launched BigQuery 7 years ago. So it's just celebrated a BigQuery birthday, which is really exciting.
7 years of BigQuery.
Great to be here with you on air.
Yeah, so 7 years ago, Google launched BigQuery. You were there. 5 years ago, you left Google to found Switchboard.
That's right. So me and the CEO of Switchboard, Juke Kwek, who was the founding product manager, decided that there was a place for a product that could help BigQuery users get data into the cloud. And that's what Switchboard is.
Sure. So you saw how people really needed to move data, and they needed help, and you were able to get in that place.
Definitely.
So what are we going to cover today?
Yeah, so let's talk about, just in general, the challenges of managing data at scale. Why is it so hard to actually get your data into BigQuery to make it actionable? And we'll talk about the strategies for building robust systems. We call this getting data strong. And we'll talk about what Switchboard does to do this and how you would design such a system. What are the challenges there? We'll talk about some of the Google BigQuery features. We'll call them hot new features that are coming out that some of our Switchboard customers are actually using or starting to use. And then we'll handle some of the most commonly asked questions about Google BigQuery, ones that we know really well and we hear all the time.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about what problems people need to solve when moving data. Like, let's say there is no Switchboard. How do people need to think about moving data to the cloud?
So let's use a real-world example. So I'm using an example from one of our customers. This is something from the Financial Times, and you can read about this on our website, switchboard-software.com. So in this particular case, this customer had many log-level files, just files sitting in the cloud, in cloud storage, hundreds of ad campaigns. These were hundreds of thousands of rows per data a day just coming in. Plus, there was data that needed to be merged into this to get some insights, right? API data, other data from other data silos. And the problem was putting this together is really complex. First of all, it's hard to automate, but what was essentially happening was reporting was manual and taking time, meaning you can't get real-time insights. You need to have a solution, a strategy to get this data going in real time.
So how do you get there from?
Yes. So let's talk about like what we want to do, right? We want to automate this. We want to do this at scale, and you want to get results quickly. But the problem is the engineering costs. That's always the problem. Like, how do you do this in a way that you can afford? And so in this particular case, the customer we were working with traditional tools was told, look, you want accuracy, flexibility, granularity, and performance, pick two.
Exactly. So this is what people are dealing with.
That's right.
Do you want accurate data? Do you want performance? Do you want it right now? Are you willing to wait to get accurate results? Or do you want flexible results?
Correct.
Or you want the granularity where you can ask any question?
Right.
And they need to choose between this.
Exactly. You can have granularity if you have slowness, or you can have, you can have high performance if you make sure you don't have a lot of rows to query. But fortunately, there are tools like BigQuery, which lets you unlock a lot of these. You can have high performance, high granularity queries, as long as you can get your data into BigQuery.
So there is a solution as long as we can move data in.
That's right.
And how do you solve this?
Right. So there's four aspects to this. There's a couple things you need to do as a developer, and this is what we built into Switchboard, but just in general, to get accuracy, you have to think about data governance. That's a huge part of this.
That's a big word.
It's one thing to connect to your data sources, right? It's another thing to make sure you're monitoring them and auditing them and checking them. And when you have hundreds of data sources, this is very complex. So when you're building a system like this, you need to think about that and put in layers of governance and alerting.
Yeah, we're talking about governance. We're talking about being able to know why your data is up to date or not up to date, et cetera.
Correct. So imagine you're giving a report to your executives and they see an anomaly. They want to know, well, what happened on Tuesday to that data? You need to be able to figure that out quickly. And you need to build systems that can understand that and monitor for that.
I see. So you have a pipeline, you are able to manage the pipeline, know what is happening, and then the next problem would be...
It's all about scale, right? So you need to understand how to build for scale. You may have enormous amounts of data coming in, and if you're in digital media, and most of our customers are in digital media, they have scale problems every day, right? Because data is coming in, more and more readers, more and more ads, more and more marketing campaigns. It never stops, it's relentless. So you need to be able to build for scale, and that takes a lot of effort.
Cool. So with Switchboard, we're building data governance tools. With BigQuery, you have a scalable database. What else are people asking for?
Yeah, so flexibility, right?
Flexibility.
We're going to talk a little bit about how BigQuery is very flexible, and there's different workloads you can run on BigQuery. But that's the thing that you need to do. You'll have change all the time. You may need to add different business rules. You need to be able to change things on the fly or understand what your business rules are. And that's another thing, if you're developing a system for scale to use BigQuery, you need to think about that and understand how that works.
So I see. So once you launch your project is not ready. People will start having new questions. They will want different reports, and we need to build a system that's able to change.
And as you know, because I've seen your videos, data is a living beast, right? It changes all the time, and there's signals in your data. So it's not something you just have a static pipeline for. Pipelines change all the time.
Yeah, so we have accuracy, granularity, flexibility, and then performance.
The last one is all about performance, right? So being able to do different things with your data, aggregate it for visualization tools, or aggregate it so you can produce a small report out of large data. That's part of it as well. And you need to have a high-performance query engine to do this in real time, which is what BigQuery is.
Yes, and with Switchboard, you are telling people that they can get data strong.
That's right. So it means instead of building all this yourself, what we try to do is put this together in a package that lets you use a data warehouse like BigQuery. So we try to hit all of these points.
And what kind of benefits are people seeing once they get into
yes, good
this
question.
world?
So in this exact case, and again, there's a case study on our website you can read, reporting time was dropped. So once we combined Switchboard and BigQuery together to make sure the data was flowing automatically and being aggregated at scale, reduction in reporting time, this is very key, right? Instead of the manual reports, 80% improvement in the speed of getting the report out. Granularity went up too. So being able to query over large amounts of very granular data, which is what executives always look for. And then of course, just being able to report back to customers. So this was a digital media company talking to their advertisers, being able to report faster, more reports, more access to how are things doing, which is the key, right, to a business like this.
Nice. So you're getting reduction in reporting time, granularity, increasing customer reporting frequency, and that lets people, like executives, get the reports they want, ask the questions they want to ask. What kind of questions can they solve? Like
all kinds of things. So in many cases, what you want to know is just how well is my website delivering what the advertisers want, which is getting the ads to the right people. Are my marketing campaigns working? And remember, this is all about breaking silos, merging marketing data with analytics data for your website, plus advertising data. And putting that together gives you the full picture of what you're doing as a digital publisher.
Yeah, earlier you were telling me this great question. It was like one of the companies you're working with was asking you, who's my best advertiser?
Yes, this is a perfect example, right? So what does that mean for them, or what is the best advertiser? Well, clearly it's an advertiser that's helping the publisher make a lot of money. That's one. But what's great about analytic systems like this is you can help find advertisers that you don't know are good, who are like diamonds in the rough, or anything like that, right? And we can talk a little bit about how we can do that with BigQuery once you get the data in. There's a couple of new features there that we can actually start looking into.
So, yeah, I mean, for me it's crazy. Like, you should know who your best advertisers are, but once you start writing a definition of, well, what's really the best advertiser, how many features do you get used to decide? And so how do you think about these problems?
Yeah, this is great. So the best thing about these questions is once you have all the granular data, you're able to ask these deep questions. So in an advertiser's case, you may want to know who are my best advertisers over certain sites? And to do that, you'll need to know content data plus advertiser data plus your ad data to see, right? And you may find people that are potentially great, but haven't actually spent a lot on your site, and you may want to have your sales team reach out to that. And having granular data and the ability to run high-performance queries over and over gives you the ability to ask those questions quickly.
Yeah. And then when one of your customers, either with Switchboard or not, are ready to get started here, they're going to, what kind of questions do they ask? What do developers need to know?
Yeah, great question. So they're looking for, like, how can I actually use BigQuery to build internal applications? This is a question we get sometimes. But what they really are trying to understand is how can I leverage these tools to improve my reporting speed, to improve my bottom line. So they're asking questions about details and metrics that are kind of over the span of time, right? So they're looking for things like clustering, and they're looking for things like predictions. They're looking for things like security, right, to make sure that they have everything in one place. Those are the things that our customers are asking about.
Yeah, and then you have pipelines, and you need to deal with problems like, sometimes data stop coming in, sometimes you're getting duplicate data. How do you look at these problems?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So we apply a governance principle to the data, right? So there's a couple things that you need to know if you're building a system like this. One is, did my pipeline stop? Or were there changes in the data? These are all things that are very important. So we specifically have features that help customers understand that. Tell me when something's gone wrong, because something going wrong is not always a problem. It's a signal that you need to change something. So that's the governance layer I'm talking about. And if you were to build this yourself, using your own developer tools, these are things you need to understand, is letting the rest of the team know that something is wrong, and what does that anomaly look like? Those are important aspects of making sure that your data's strong and your pipelines are robust.
Cool. On the scale size, BigQuery can handle massive data sets. Are people using it for smaller data sets too?
This is a fantastic question. So I have noticed in my experience with real customers using BigQuery, people will not just use BigQuery for enormous data sets, of which it is great for, right? It's Google scale, it's used internally at Google. They also use it for small data sets. Why? Because it's queryable with standard SQL. They can use the tools they have, but also it's so convenient, right? It's a cloud-based data warehouse that can be queried through the web browser, right? So you don't even need to understand or install new software to use it. It's just in your browser. And you're able to write your standard SQL queries over small data sets just as easily as large. And on top of that, you can combine small data sets with large data sets to get a result, which is amazing, right? This is why BigQuery is so powerful. It lets you organize all of your different data sources in one place, busting those silos and getting everything together.
Well, so people previously had to deal with, I don't know how many data sources, how many CRM systems. What are the typical sources you see?
Yeah, everything under the sun, right? We've seen FTP servers. People are still using email reports. And this is typical, right? You'll see Salesforce connections, you'll see Postgres connections, and we even pull data out of BigQuery, right? And again, some of the Google Cloud tools as well. So all of these things together, this is where you start to see kind of the silo busting aspect.
And let's talk a little bit about technical features that you're seeing in BigQuery. A lot of people need to comply with GDPR.
Yes.
How do you work around that now?
Yeah, so two things about that. One, just putting your data in BigQuery lets you know what's there. And part of GDPR is understanding what's there and being able to audit your own data. But secondly, there are some great features from the Google Cloud, like Cloud DLP, which is an API that helps you find PII in your data if you don't know about it. Remember, these data sources are so large, they're past human scale, it's machine scale. So having an API that detects PII, personally identifiable information, is a big plus for using the Google Cloud Platform. And it's built into the Cloud Platform, right? So you can actually use it with BigQuery.
Yeah, a lot of time people just send any kind of data to logs. We recently saw this huge company storing plain text passwords in the logs.
Definitely.
If you use a tool like the DLP API, you can scan logs and you can find, is there any PII here? Are we doing everything correct?
Exactly. And at this scale, there's no way you would do it any other way. You have to do it with an automated tool like this.
And you can use BigQuery as a single data source where you're storing all of your data and you know where everything is.
Yeah.
And then if you need to delete data, if you need to update it.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's a misconception that BigQuery is append only. It's not true. BigQuery supports create, update, destroy functions. So you're able to change data, alter it, drop rows. You can do all of those things. And in fact, you can even do those right from the same SQL interface that I talked about earlier. It's very convenient.
So we almost have to go to questions now, but let's do a quick round of BigQuery features and so people can ask us about them if they want to, but I'm really excited about all of this.
Definitely, and I'll just say these are all applicable to our customers.
Oh yes, so for example, to optimize data, now you can partition and cluster how you store your data.
Yep.
Are your customers using
Definitely,
this?
in fact, literally yesterday I was working on a project where we were improving the speed and performance with some partitioning.
Yes, now you can get reductions of querying sizes from, I don't know, from 1 terabyte to 1% of that.
The way it was described to me was exponential performance boost, just because of this reduction.
Yeah, so people should really look into clustering their tables, partitioning them by day. Have you tried BI Engine?
Just starting to use it. So BI Engine is great. I think of it as a turbocharger on top of your queries, right? It's in-memory querying cache of the data that you're already looking at. So if you have a visualization tool, you're able to get those query results even faster when you use BI Engine.
Exactly. So one problem that people were having with BigQuery is once they need to serve these results.
Exactly.
Do you serve them from BigQuery? Do you use another faster tool?
Yeah, BigQuery is so powerful that it gives these data results in huge sizes. So visualization tools are starting to catch up. BI Engine bridges that gap.
Yeah, it brings to manageable size and transparently. Let's talk about BigQuery machine learning.
Oh, there's so much to talk about here. But yeah, there's a great set of use cases that BigQuery supports out of the box, right? There's k-means clustering. So you talked earlier about who are my best advertisers. This is a tool that lets you figure that out with using machine learning. Cluster your advertisers, your customers in different buckets automatically. Using BigQuery as a source, it's great. And then another one is prediction and classification. Regression analysis on your data. Help predict, like, what are my best ads? What are my best sites? What are my best, the ways to sell ads on my site? These are all things that you can get for free with BigQuery. They just come out of the box.
Yeah, I've been playing with that and I love it.
Yes.
GIS.
Yeah, GIS, this is great. And actually, you just wrote a great blog post about this yesterday, which I saw. So this is something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, is directly query using GIS parameters. Just do locations, you can do radius, you can do all of these things. It's super useful if you're selling or you have a retail business.
Spreadsheets.
Oh yeah, I get this all the time. What's the best way to get my data into Google Sheets or spreadsheets? There are ways, but there's a new thing coming out which will allow you to actually just visualize those results in these spreadsheets directly, which is what everybody's been asking for.
I know. So people have this problem with SQL. I love SQL.
Yeah.
Everyone should learn SQL. But if you don't want to go there, now you will be able to treat all of this data as if it was a spreadsheet.
That's right.
And it's really crazy.
Yeah, this opens up the use of BigQuery or data warehouse to the rest of the company.
Cool. So in closing, before we go to live questions, for people that are looking forward to put all of this data together, what do they need to think of?
Yeah, they have to remember a couple things. They just have to remember the costs necessary to scale up and just think about what they need to do. There's a couple aspects people always forget. They forget about scale and predicting scale. They forget about data governance. That's one of the clear ones. That's the one thing that gets dropped off the table. Like, remember, data governance is like 80% of the problem you have to solve. And then flexibility. You can't just have an engineer build a pipeline and walk away. You're going to have to manage that and monitor it. So those are the things to keep in mind when you're building at scale.
And you can either build yourself, you can call Switchboard, that will reduce the time you know how to build pipelines. Let's go to live questions. So that's all for our talk today. Please stay tuned for our frequently asked questions. We will be back in less than a minute. Welcome back. We are back for some live questions that we have ready for you here. Michael, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so first question we got here is BigQuery too expensive for my use case?
We hear this all the time. Short answer is no. Let me tell you about it.
Good.
So I told you earlier, BigQuery is flexible for different workloads. It's also flexible on pricing, right? It can be as frugal as you need it to be. You can do an enormous amount of work with a low cost, or you can talk to the Google Cloud team and get unlimited access to do everything you want.
So what kind of costs are your customers seeing there?
So of course there's a range, but I've seen customers do 100 million row per month ingestions with data that size, in the high gigabytes, even terabytes per month of data, and have query costs or total costs of BigQuery under $1,000 a month. I've observed that. Of course, people do different workloads and there's different use cases, but you can actually have a very small spend, and storage is extremely cheap on BigQuery as well.
So people keep storing data, and the cost of a data warehouse compared to other data warehouse or compared to what you want to do?
For the scale, BigQuery is very favorable.
Yeah. Now, an important warning for people here is set up your cost controls.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there are ways to control costs and make sure that people don't go crazy, because BigQuery is so easy to use. People want to use it and use it. So you can control your costs with cost controls.
Exactly. And then you can cap and you can just query free
Exactly.
and relax.
Query without worry.
Query without worry. Yes. I like that one. Next question. How can I restrict access to my BigQuery data?
Right.
What's happening with privacy? What's happening with...
There's a lot of stuff. One thing is BigQuery is, again, easy to use, and it's great for sharing across your company or your team, but you may not want everybody to have access to every data set. So first of all, it has very granular access control. You can restrict access of read-only for certain data sets. You can restrict access completely to certain data sets. That's step one. But there's also ways to encrypt data at the row level.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have per row security controls, who can access each row, who can access each column.
Right, and so that's very powerful, right? So there's data that you probably don't want to share with all of your company, but you want them to be able to ask questions about the data. This lets you do it.
And you see your customers doing this every day?
Yeah, there's people using both of these tools all the time, and especially the access control list, because you just want to make sure that you're controlling your data. That's part of being data strong.
Cool. And how about this myth?
Yeah.
Is BigQuery append only?
Yeah, we covered this earlier. I still hear this all the time. So BigQuery is not append only. You can actually change the data. You can run alter commands. You can even use standard SQL to do some of that.
Exactly. When you launched BigQuery 7 years ago,
yes, that's right.
It was append only, but for quite a long time now, we've been able to do updates.
It's amazing at scale to be able to do this as well.
Oh yeah. Now, if you have dozens or hundreds of users at your company, how do you monitor the usage of BigQuery?
This is a great feature of Google Cloud Platform. So you're able to actually use things like Stackdriver to monitor usage, but you can also have the stats put in BigQuery as a table. So you can actually use BigQuery to monitor BigQuery and be able to put a report in as a BigQuery data set and understand who's using your data. This happens all the time with our customers. Again, BigQuery is so popular, you get tons and tons of people inside the company using it. You want to know, well, who exactly is doing it? Are people writing scripts? Are they building apps? Like, what's happening? And you can actually monitor all of that.
And basically, you can use BigQuery to query who's using more of BigQuery.
Right.
And then you can find if there is any person or script going crazy with it.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually happened at some of our customers, right?
So they go to the logs, they can find
it's both the logs. I mean, Google Cloud Platform logs. They can look at their logs, and then they can look at granular data in BigQuery and the tables that the logs provide to see who exactly is using this. And it helps you inform, like maybe we need to add more capacity or change the way we're doing BigQuery. But that's what you can do.
Nice. And the last question we have here is, this is a very personal question for me. Is it BigQuery or BigQuery?
Well, why don't you tell us, Felipe, since you hear this all the time?
That is my answer. If you write BigQuery as 2 words, you will get this tweet from me.
Be careful on social media or Felipe will find you.
Just 1 word, BigQuery. Well, thanks a lot, Michael, for joining us. I hope we can do something together again.
Me too. It's always great to be on a show like this with you.
Yes, I really want to see how your customers are doing machine learning inside BigQuery.
We'll talk again about that.
But we will leave it for our next episode.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, thank you for tuning in. Please visit Cloud OnAir for more content from Google Cloud experts. I'm Felipe Hoffa. Goodbye.